Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of Internet Fried Brains. I'm your host, Jort. We've got Sami with us and a special guest. Sami, do you care to share the details a little bit before we get into intros?
I sure can. This cryptid is our friend Phoenix.
Hello.
Longtime friend of mine, good person, great opinions. We were going to have Shane back, obviously, but we were all going for a long walk and he saw a ship and we couldn't stop him. He ran right to it.
The man loves boats.
The man loves boats. So he'll be back whenever the tides allow, and we'll hopefully have him back next week. If not, we have a new cryptid to join us.
So, as usual, we'll start off with quick introductions and our icebreaker of the week, and then we'll transition over into our stories. But for those of you who are new to the show, welcome to Internet Fried Brains. On this show, we talk about gaming, news, technology, and all sorts of weird stuff that we're into. We write the agenda ourselves, and we'd love to hear ideas from you as well. If there is a topic you'd like to hear more about, or if you just want to say thanks, or send us corrections or hate mail, feel free to hit up podcasts@jorts.tech with any and all of your concerns. We'll start off with some quick intros and backgrounds. My name is Jason. I also go by Jort. I'm a Taurus, raised near New York City. I've been PC gaming since Counter-Strike 1.6. I'm an IT handyman, tinkerer, data hoarder, head writer at jorts.tech, and 3 times savior of Baldur's Gate. This week's icebreaker question: what is your least favorite mechanic in video games that you wish would just stop? Mine is always online DRMs. I am so tired of deciding that, you know what, I'm gonna go play a campaign from a game franchise that I love, only to discover that I can't play that campaign without first waiting for some sort of ridiculous online connection. And if my internet goes out, renders that entire game, even the single player experience, completely inaccessible. I'm looking at you, Activision. Every Call of Duty campaign. Hey, looking at 343 Industries with Halo Infinite. We're looking at Diablo 3. We're looking at Hitman 3, StarCraft 2. It's everywhere, and I hate it. Sami.
An absolutely fair rant. Are we pleasing the astrology girlies now? I'm a Taurus too. I'm Sami. I also go by Cyber Dizzy. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a 2-time savior of Baldur's Gate, if we're doing that. I play a lot of games, but also, just your average nerd. I sell D&D dice that I make, so that's fun. My mechanic that I fucking hate in video games, weapon and tool breakage. So things like in any crafting style game where you get like just durability, that is the biggest pain in the. Just let me keep the weappen. There's so many rants I could go on based on crafting games
Breath
alone.
Of the Wild. I get it.
That's fair. I currently started playing Pal World, and it's so infuriating.
What if we gave Pikachu an AK-47?
That's fair. Phoenix?
All right, I'm Phoenix. I'm a Gemini, which basically counters you two out because I'm 2 people at once. I'm a current college student. That means I'm basically a child. And I am a 0-time savior of Baldur's Gate. I'm actually just a menace, so...
Welcome to the show.
And basically, probably my least favorite mechanic is DLCs. I hate DLCs with a passion because it just allows companies to pump out this bare bones game that you have to supplement with like $20 DLCs. So many of them over and over and over. And like the base game's like $40. I should get a full game for $40.
Yes. Oh God, that's part of my.
I'm looking at UEA. I'm looking at UEA.
We're gonna get emails. All right.
Excellent. So let's transition over to our first topic this week. Interesting. We're going to start off with impose a question to the room. With a budget of, I'm going to come up with $650, because that should be enough to buy the best of top line console, whatever console is out now, plus an extra controller for like PlayStation with 2 controllers, Xbox with 2 controllers. For the budget of $650, would you buy a console or build a gaming PC today for yourself, for your use, and why? We'll start with Sammy.
I personally, when I built my computer in 2020, I had a friend who helped me who's an absolute nerd. We got all the parts individually. I spent a little over $2,000 on my setup. And I am fully aware that I don't need, like, for the kinds of games I play, this is unnecessary, but it's RGB and I love it.
Of course I need a 3090 to play Stardew Valley.
Don't at me like that. So for $650, if we're comparing it like console wise to PC, I think I would always go PC. Consoles are great, but PC has hundreds and hundreds of free games that you could get on Steam that are still, fun, occupying time-based things. That's including like a decent sized hard drive that you can get as well. With any console, you have to drop $60 at least for each game that you want to play. Then if you're wanting like extra storage and things, you're dropping another $150 and things like that. You're saying $650. That's the console and a controller. That is not even including.
Okay, so let's bump it up then, because the PC that we're talking about here is as easy as it is to say. Well, I definitely would pick my PC. Would you pick a PC? So let's increase the budget to $750 then. So you have $750 because you're gonna get. You're right, because Baldur's Gate is 125 gigs, and that's onboard storage with most consoles. So what are you? Exactly. You're gonna get a drive for the rest of your games. So let's go a whole budget of $750. So with a PC that you could build with this budget of $750, realistically, you're looking at probably only playing at 1080p as well. Because
I think I would still pick the PC though.
Awesome.
There's a lot more options.
I think that's an awesome opinion. Phoenix, how about you?
Yeah, I also in 2020 built a PC for myself as well, and so mine was also about $2,000, but I had saved that money from babysitting and stuff.
That's the way.
I babysit for like an entire summer and I saved all that money. But generally, I'm not a huge fan of like consoles. They're fairly like limiting. Like you have to use the controller. You can't like just hook up a mouse and keyboard. Whereas like with the PC, you can hook up a controller if you want to play with a controller.
Very
that
true.
Kind of thing.
Looking at you, Halo 5. The only game on Xbox, the only game on my Xbox that does not accept any input mapping for mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
Because the Xbox accepts mouse and keyboard for input mapping to most games. It's Halo 5 that doesn't. Still waiting for an explanation on that 343.
Just to piggyback on that, I would agree that like anything that a console can do, a computer do, and the only lack thereof would be possibly like portability. But then you have things like the Steam Deck.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's my answer. Is the Asus? I would buy the Asus ROG Ally, which is.
Oh, I was just looking into one of those. Actually.
Yeah, so it's about $100 more than the Steam Deck, give or take, for the same, like for like the, I think it's like the 1 terabyte memory configuration. With the trade-off, with the upside, some people would say trade-off, some people will say upside, of it running Windows instead of SteamOS. It's a whole Windows PC in the form factor of a Steam Deck, which for those of you who have never seen or held a Steam Deck, it's about a Switch, about the width of a Nintendo Switch and maybe an inch taller. So picture like a little bit of a beefier Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, they are definitely thicker than a Switch.
And it's a whole Windows ecosystem. So you're not limited to Steam, and you're not limited to Steam games that run on the Proton layer because it's SteamOS is Linux based. You can install Epic Games. You can install any software that you want that runs on Windows.
I'm pretty sure does it
just
have
use
an
it as a
HDMI?
laptop when you go someplace and just you've got a whole ass computer. And it fits in your
stream anime.
It does stream anime.
Does it have an HDMI? I can't remember if
does.
you have the.
Okay,
Okay,
so it has
then
HDMI
you can
outs.
put
It's
it
got
to a
it's
TV
got
if you would
capacity
want
to support. Yeah, it'll support. I think it'll do 4K 120. I think it's HDMI. Don't quote me on this. I don't remember which standard. It's one of them. But I'd go with a PC gaming handheld.
Yeah. I would agree that they're great. And I got one for my fiance for his 30th birthday last year, and he absolutely loves it. Like it's one of his go-to things now. And
I'm looking forward to it running on them it currently SteamOS does not run on desktop hardware. Valve has indicated that they're working on a version of SteamOS that can run on hardware. And I'd like the idea of at some point building a Steam console, building a console in a small, like, get like a small form factor chassis, but put like a 3080 in.
Are you basically saying just building your own
Steam and just run SteamOS on it? Yeah,
consoles at that point too.
That's it. Can we get to a point where we could build our own consoles?
That's interesting.
If SteamOS takes off, or if the gaming handheld market takes off, and we start seeing mobile-focused or lighter versions of existing operating systems, because Windows is very heavy now. Windows is a very, very heavy process.
Very, very heavy.
That's why SteamOS runs Linux, and that's why it's so much more impressive to me that the ROG Ally runs Windows and can still push out the games and the frame rates that it does. Terrific. I really appreciate that. That was great. That was the best first topic we've had in ever. Good job.
3 episodes.
Right, how do we feel about Ethernet going into those little handhelds?
Yeah,
with a USB dongle, anything's possible.
Hey, that's fair enough.
They have USB ports. You get USB to Ethernet, and you're hardlined.
Yeah.
All I know is
that's not a bad idea, though. That's a good point, because
you can have it at home as a docking station.
You know my Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi is garbage.
Yeah,
like the only reason I'm able to be here is because of Ethernet.
Praise the copper wires.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, if you're getting a console or a PC or anything like that,
hardline it
the
anyway.
assumption is that you are going to have at least some kind of Wi-Fi, but it is also fair that not everybody has internet capabilities like that. But
though, even if you're gaming on console at home, we would still recommend plugging in via a direct connection as opposed to relying on Wi-Fi. You will notice a difference.
You will notice a difference. It's going to be insane. You're going to love it, and you're welcome.
Excellent.
I definitely did. I was fully Wi-Fi like 3 years ago, and then Sami got me on Ethernet.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't I send you an Ethernet cable?
Yeah, you did. And it was ridiculous long. It was like 200 feet. It was 200 feet.
Sorry.
Yeah, but you can cut it, and then you have 2 cables.
You said that you didn't know how far away it was. That's right. And you were like, I don't know, maybe 100. And I was like, I'll just get 200.
So good news. They're good up to 300 feet. But after 300 feet, you actually experience signal loss.
Really?
With most cables,
I can see that.
We can get into different cable standards and them having... we're not going to do that. It's very boring. And
that's fair. I'll do that relevant. Off call.
So our second topic this week. Sami, why don't you introduce this topic?
Oh, this was my idea. Early access games, why you love them or hate them or something in between. I fucking hate them. Like I know that I started this saying like I was playing Pal World and things like that. And my biggest thing with early access games is you are using me and other people as free game testers. You are having me pay for this unreleased, unfinished game, have constant problems with it, and then how many times have you played an early access game where it's never continued production, or it did continue and they wipe all the progress you've made entirely? You have to start brand new, which if you've put in 100 hours into this game, I don't want to start with blank slate again. It's the worst. Or did they then continue and release the new full version of it and then expect you to pay more money? Like, all of those suck. You suck. I want the game. And there's like examples where you can do testing that we can get into later, and that's fine. But why am I paying, $30 to $60 for a broken game that you're never gonna finish for me?
If I may, I'd also like to raise the fact that a lot of games will like promise you this product, and then they'll finish it and it'll be nowhere near the product they promised you at the very beginning.
Like the day before?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good point.
Did you hear that they're blaming bloggers on the internet for their game failing now?
Excuse me?
They said
It's ridiculous.
They released a press statement. One of the bullet points of their press statement was, so who made money off the day before? Many internet bloggers have made money and monetized the release of our game for their own personal corrupt means or something ridiculous like that. Yeah, in the most brain dead take. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Surely it's the children who are wrong. I'm sorry, Phoenix. Please continue.
You're good. Personally, I'm kind of in like a middle ground. Like, I don't absolutely hate early access. Like, I think it's really cool to be able to like be introduced to a game, to see it develop, all that kind of stuff at like a discount, because usually when you buy an early access, it's a discounted price to what it usually comes out to at the very end. So like, I understand the whole not wanting free game testers and that kind of thing, but also you're paying slightly less than you would at the very end, and you get to experience it, see its growth, all that kind of stuff. I see the face you're making. I understand.
For those of you listening, yeah, Sammy's got like a visceral reaction to that.
I'm trying. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm going to piss you off even more.
I know you are. I could read the notes.
You're gonna hate my opinion.
I've seen a lot of games that come out of early access, and I really love them. But also, I have been burned by several games that either never come out of early access, or they're a completely different game, or it's not any better than when it was in early access. Like, it's still buggy, it's still bogged down with problems that they just don't fix.
So, the only early access games I've participated in directly in one early access experience and indirectly in another one that is going to make you guys laugh. So, directly, I participated in all of the beta flights for Halo Infinite. That's my experience with early access. My hands-on experience with early access. I think, overall, even for all the games that go out, EA, that take a bunch of money, and yes, Sammy, crowdsource their QA and their product testing.
Free product testing.
It's better than free product testing. It's profitable product testing.
Yeah.
I think you are correct that there's a huge issue in the studios looking at early access titles in that way. I don't think that's how early access should be treated.
Yes.
And I'm coming from this with the rose-tinted glasses of, well, the early access game that I played listened to my feedback, and, well, the game kind of fell on its face, but they at least listened to most of it. And I will also point out that Baldur's Gate 3 spent 3 years in early access taking very detailed and pointed feedback from their player community, and it is only because of that we have the game that we love today.
I put a pin in it. I said that there are examples of good testing, and it's Baldur's Gate. So with Baldur's Gate, you had to apply to be a tester, which that's more reasonable than being open to the public. Anybody can purchase this thing.
Baldur's Gate early access was separate from QA testing, because they had a QA process that the builds went through before hitting EA.
Yeah, they had qualifications that you needed to be over 18, and then here's the exact criteria from their website. It said all potential playtesters need is a love for RPGs, fluent reading and writing comprehension in English, commitment to at least one full day of playtesting to be done in person at one of our offices, the ability to generate clear and concise feedback, and then commitment to a non-disclosure agreement. That's different. That's a good example of having playtesting.
Oh, I'm talking about playable. I was talking about playable beta. I'm talking about the 3 years where Shane spent 3 years playing Act 1.
The
3
only
years
reason
saving the Grove. There are people who spent 3 years saving the Grove 1,000 times before that game came out.
I guess I give them props, but for me personally, I could never. I would be bored of Baldur's Gate before it came out. You know,
and that's why I didn't touch it until it came out, because I was worried that would happen to me. That's like one of the other game that I secondhand participated in beta test of EverQuest.
EverQuest.
Actually, sorry, EverQuest 2.
Never heard of that. 2.
Oh, honey, I think it's older than you are.
I know
the first EverQuest is probably older than you are. Yeah, so
Probably is.
I spent a lot of time at my buddy's
It's
house
older
while his
than
older
you.
brother was beta testing EverQuest 2. And we would help him put feedback together like, "Oh, that mechanic doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense if you're, like a new player to the game." Or he'd be like, "Hey, what do you guys think of this? Do you think this combo is broken and I should report it, or do you think this is working as as intended?" So that was a very, very different and unique experience because we're talking about, back in my day when the AAA studios were putting out good quality content.
2004 was when EverQuest 2 came out. That was the release date.
Yep.
So
So this is beta
you
test.
were a baby.
This is beta test though, so that would have been probably
Before
2003.
it,
Yeah,
yeah,
more likely
2003,
2003.
most likely. The other one, the first EverQuest, was 1999. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Phoenix,
You were-
what's the first video game you remember playing?
That would probably be on VTech, which is one of those like kid
I know,
educational
yeah.
learning
aren't
console
those
things.
like a leapfrog?
They're like leapfrogs, but with the better CPUs.
Yeah. And
That
it
was
was
leapfrog.
it was
Yeah.
like this puzzle game, and I just remember being absolutely like traumatized by these clown things that would pop out at you.
I love that. What
What-
was
what
the first
about, like,
console
actual
you had?
game,
Like
yeah.
a game that you started playing, yeah.
The first like actual game, Mario
Yeah.
Kart.
On which right, but there
Yeah,
are
Wii.
Mario Karts that
Wii.
are older than you.
the
Wii.
Wii.
The Wii.
Wow.
Oh God.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
old.
I feel old, Gandalf.
You're old, Yusuke.
I didn't even know there were older Mario Karts until I was in like middle school.
That's okay. That's okay. That hurts a little, but it's okay.
Wow.
think
There
you
was
guys
one
know
time
enough.
where me and Phoenix were in call, and I just started questioning them of different, like, do you know what this thing is, or do you know what like this show is, and stuff like that. And don't do that with anybody younger than you. It hurts.
I've been playing Counter-Strike your whole life.
I know Johnny Quest.
Well, that's good.
I think I was in high school.
I grew up on that.
Okay,
And Animaniacs.
Oh, the
Animaniacs
Animaniacs are
was-
terrific.
that was just throughout always. They're out again now. They started it all over again. There's a
Oh,
new
and
one,
it's
it's
really
still
good
with,
too.
What's his name? Ron, the voice actor. He's all over TikTok. It's still him with it. He's great.
Mm-hmm.
I was Googling something and I got frozen. I was going to
World.
Google when did they stop putting video games in cereal boxes, but the autocorrects just put me at a full stop of when did they stop putting cocaine and coke, lead in paint, copper in pennies, and CD players in cars. I
I still have a CD player in my car.
I
think
had
have one.
I have a CD player in my car. I had a tape deck in my first car, and I had what was I would still consider the most okay. So second icebreaker question: what's one piece of technology that you experienced that like truly blew your mind? And I'll tell you, I'll start with mine. I had a cassette tape to 8mm aux adapter for my car.
I remember
One end is a cassette
those.
tape, and the other
Yeah.
end plugged into my goddamn
Your
iPod, which is
Those were the
something also
coolest.
older than you. We'll get into those if you need an explanation of what it was. But it was
I
like a
think
phone
I know.
that
I
didn't
think
do
I know what an
phone
iPod
stuff.
is.
Right, so for the Zoomers in chat, we used to carry our phone with us, and then a second device that was phone shaped that only held music.
And then some people, you also had to carry a camera on you, and then you had to.
That was also phone shaped.
It was also
Everything
I
was
just,
like the size of like a big blocky phone. And you had to just have. That's why you ever look at like those like big jeans, like wow, like everybody dressed like absolute
Jinko
morons
jeans.
with the big pockets.
Jinkos-
It's so
sorry.
we could fit you could fit your Sidekick, and you could fit your Game Boy Advance SP, and so you could fit your little pocket point and shoot camera, and so you could fit your iPod.
Just
God,
so
I
you know,
feel
Jinko
old.
jeans are back. Actually, they've made a
I
huge
saw
comeback the
that.
past year. Everyone started wearing Jinkos again.
I don't even know what those are.
That's fair.
That's okay.
It's fine. Actually, don't
I
worry
had
about
hoped
it.
they wouldn't.
I would have liked those to stay where bucket hats deserve
Some
to
things should just stay dead and buried.
I thought most things would, but then, you know, we got like the mullet back.
Yeah. All right, so Phoenix, what technology did you experience for the first time that just like absolutely like this might as well be magic as far as I'm concerned?
When I was a kid, Elmos in school, like the little like light things that you would put like the sheet of plastic on and then draw on. Like as a kid, I had no idea how that thing was getting onto the projector. I just saw the
overhead projector. I love that. That's amazing.
That's fair. That's a good one.
It looks like magic to a kid. They're just writing on this piece of paper on a desk, and suddenly it's on the screen.
I love that.
Or on the wall, I guess. Whiteboard, whatever.
I think mine might have been when I first saw, I'm not going to dox them, but I remember their first and last name. The first person in my school who got the first person in my school who got a razor. The flip phone.
For some context.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the scooter.
Yeah, so that's better than I thought what most people would think. For some context, the razor was a flip phone that was very expensive and super thin.
Only the rich kids got it, yeah.
And it was super, super thin. And it was like, you know how like, what's the status symbol now having an iPhone with a shattered screen? It was having a razor that would almost lay actually flat on the table if it even worked at all.
It was insane. And I remember the first time I saw one, because then they came out with the chocolate razors as well. Mm-hmm. And I remember just thinking that is the coolest thing. Because I didn't get my first phone until I was 15. Mm-hmm. And it was a giant blocky Motorola flip. Where you can unscrew the antenna, and everything. Yeah. You dropped it, that it'd fall apart into multiple pieces. There goes your battery across the hall. Mm-hmm. Like,
remember when phones had serviceable batteries, though?
I wish that was still something you could do.
I remember I think it was LG made a phone that swiveled around itself and the commercials were it looking like a record player arm. And it was really skinny.
Oh, yeah. The really tiny. I remember that.
So I had one of those. And then after that, I will never forget this because it blew my mind. I had the LG and the Motorola ENV2. The NV2. And that phone was regular phone sized on the outside. And you could open it up and flip it open. And there was a whole QWERTY keyboard.
Oh, would you look at that?
I do know those. I do know those.
On the inside. And bro, that blew my little 13-year-old mind.
I had a phone similar to this one, and it was to this day, even with, I have a S23 Ultra, this was my favorite phone. I had the LG Slide, which is exactly like that, but you could slide the top screen up, so the top was like touchscreen, which was the coolest thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
Like, you could touch the screen. I wish to this day, though, I still had like a keyboard that I could feel.
So do you know why? Do you know why the keyboards physically started going away and why the screen started getting bigger? I can tell you why. It's gonna crack you up.
Oh boy!
The shrinking of the keyboard and the growth of the screen coincided exactly with the phones being able to access the internet and play back video content. As soon as we realized I can watch on my phone, we realized that the physical keyboard was a secondary need, and we needed to address all available real estate directly to screen as quickly as possible.
I have a topic that we could touch on real quick that I've thought about for a long time related to phones and cell phones.
Oh, I was hoping I'm glad it wasn't related to.
No, it doesn't go to the other thing. Yeah. Why is it? Because when we were younger,
back in my
me
day,
and Jason, there were a lot of different phone places. Like there was goofy phones you could get, silly shaped phones, ones that were shaped like frogs and stupid shit like that for cell phones as well as like the goofy landline ones. Mm-hmm. Why is it that we just where did that go?
Cases.
What happened to the cases and stuff for sure. What happened to the small brands? There's only like the 4 brands of phones now. What happened to all the little guys?
Monopolies.
They couldn't keep up with smartphones. So when it comes to producing a smartphone, here's what a lot of people don't realize. I've got a Pixel 6 Pro. You've got an S23 Ultra. Phoenix, what kind of phone do you have?
iPhone.
iPhone?
Yeah.
Which one? Is it bigger than 13?
I don't know.
12?
That's
If it's
right.
bigger, if
I'm taking my
if
case
it's
off,
more
hold on.
new, right? If it's newer than an iPhone 12,
It's red.
It's that's awesome. But if you got it within the last like 6 years,
Oh yeah, I
even,
did.
right? All three of us are carrying around a phone that is likely a more powerful computer than most people's laptop at home. Because nobody has like a family computer anymore. I'm not gonna like even pretend. But like most people have, if they have a computer at home at all, they have some crappy Chromebook or some like $200-$300 laptop they got at Best Buy.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, the actual compute technology in here far outpaces the laptops and phones that most and computers that most people have at home, because the phone manufacturers realized that the age of the personal computer is evolving to the personal computer in our pocket, not the personal computer in our home office. And when it came
totally
to
agree.
producing those phones, you need to be a bigger company to have the resources to develop. And in some cases, Apple uses their own custom silicon. Samsung has an agreement with TSMC, which I believe they have an ownership interest in. Google is now pivoting to manufacturing or licensing their own silicon. So each one of these, so like when you build a computer, you've got your choice of CPU. You can get an Intel or an AMD CPU, right?
Yeah.
With phones, you have your choices. You have a wider choice of CPU brands of silicon that are powering that SoC, and those developing those cost as much money and resources as developing desktop CPUs. So eventually, that
It's
crowd
fair.
is going to thin
That
out.
makes sense. Yeah.
I just still feel like there's a missed market for the novelty of it. When it comes to like how people are with aesthetic and stupid, goofy things nowadays, like just look at the like bad example, button example, things like the purses and stuff people carry around that actually hold nothing, but it's shaped like a tiny little mushroom. So they walk around carrying it because they fucking love it because it's adorable. I feel like you could do the same thing for cute little novelty phone things. I was trying to
But
find
they did
a
that with phone
cute
cases.
little goofy. There's so few like good ones for new phones that you get like the boring. This is it. Like
Hey,
you get sturdy.
I'll plug someone who I wish would sponsor us, dbrand.com.
Yeah,
Dbrand is great.
Custom cases are where it's at this point.
I've got
I could
their,
get the cheap
we got their
ones.
X-ray skins. So this is an actual it's a whole X-ray of whatever,
Oh.
and it's
That's
appropriate
cool.
to the model of phone you order it for. So this is an X-ray of a Pixel 6 Pro, which I
That
can
is really
verify
neat.
because I've actually taken one of these apart. When my old one died, I took it apart.
There was a stupid photo that was going around the internet for a while of like a woman, and instead of holding up a phone, it was a large pill bug, basically.
Yeah.
And I want that, or like a frog that looks like it's hugging my face. Why can't I? Sorry, I'm still on the frog rant.
Well, I
just want
think
a
it's
frog
also
phone.
because of those were really cumbersome to carry around with us beforehand, and they're going to be even more cumbersome to carry around afterwards.
Well, I mean, it's going to eventually get to the point where phones are going to be cumbersome to carry around because they keep getting bigger and
Yeah,
bigger
I mean,
and bigger
I
and
think
bigger.
we're actually settling
my
on
pocket.
we're settling on a space where I feel like there's a maximum size, because I've always been I get the XL sized phone, and my partner Tori's always been get the regular sized phone, and I think that's because I
Well,
have like big,
pocket size.
really
You have
long
pockets.
thumbs, and I have pockets because I'm a man, and patriarchy or whatever.
Bro, I had a friend in high
But
school
these-
who shoved
the
an entire
XLs are getting-
iPad into their pocket.
Well, with Jinkos you can.
We don't need to keep bringing up Jinkos. Take those off the bingo card immediately.
But I've noticed that actually the Pixel 6 XL is smaller than what I had. I had the 3 XL before that, and the XL phone shrank.
The S23 Ultra is massive.
Yes. Does
Alex
it
has
come
the
with a
phone
stylus?
before this. Yes, and I do have a stylus. But in general,
They
this
use
isn't
that
a
as
good
an
example
excuse to
'cause I
make it
have
bigger, because
baby
they're like, well,
hands,
we gave you a stylus, so don't worry about it.
But the thing is massive.
Why do
got,
you need
what,
that
5
many
cameras on it?
lenses?
5 cameras. a nice phone, though. I only got it for the sole reason that it has a stylus, and now I can make funny faces on Snapchat when I take photos of Alex. I can turn him into a princess now.
The last Samsung phone I had was a Note 9, and I missed the stylus is the thing about it that I missed. I did not miss Samsung's 30 gigabytes of bloatware.
Fair enough.
That uninstallable bloatware.
This is an iPhone 13, and my last one was an iPhone 8.
Right. And
so I skipped a couple generations there, and I hate
works
this
exactly
thing.
like the other one did.
Yeah, it's just bigger, and it has more things, and it keeps changing my settings every time it updates. I hate it. I want to go back.
I will tell you, there's so many people switching to iPhone from iPhone to Pixel that when you buy a Google Pixel, it comes with a guide that says, I'm new and I've had an iPhone for years and I need a guide. And it tells you where stuff that you're expecting to look for is going to be and what it's called in the Android environment. And I don't know of any other phone manufacturer that does an onboarding experience for Apple refugees.
That's really funny,
Direct competition. Direct competition.
I will tell you that Google's trying to mimic that if you stay in our sandbox, everything works together seamlessly, while also making their stuff available outside of their sandbox. I think you do get the best of the both worlds. The one thing that I'll say on the show over and over and over again is that I wish the Apple Watch would function outside of the Apple ecosystem. It is
You did say that, I think, the first episode, yeah.
It's the pinnacle of wearable technology. And
they want you to buy an iPhone.
Right. In the words of Tim Cook, just buy your mom an iPhone. She won't have them green bubbles no more. Anyway.
With that.
Terrific. Sammy, why don't you introduce the second half of the show this week?
Oh, all right. So the second half, the last half, I'll call it. It's the hyperfixations. So basically, it's where all of us cap out the episode saying something that we have just gotten really into lately. It's we are aware that everybody's very interested and knowledgeable or well-read and at least one thing. And this part is for us to just really deep dive into the one thing that we can't get enough of right now.
So if you'll notice, above my head, we have the rabbit hole timer because we learned our lesson after the first episode.
We go a little too hard.
3 minutes on the board. If your topic is engaging and interesting enough that we absolutely cannot continue after it's over, you get a bonus 3 minutes.
As decided in the last episode.
New rule for Rabbit Hole Hour should be a bingo spot.
Oh, that's yeah. I
Every
agree.
time we come up with a new rule on the fly,
list.
yeah, everything's made up and the points don't matter.
Yeah, pretty much.
So to start off the hyperfixation segment, Sammy, are you ready to go with yours?
I sure can.
Terrific.
Mine is about a legal case that I feel is not getting enough attention. It's slowly starting to, but this whole thing is insane. Did you start my timer? Okay, I'm going to assume you did. So, what happened was there was a man who was accused of a very serious crime that I won't actually say. You can look into it yourself. But his name was Nicholas Alvarian. But my favorite part about this is this man has gone by so many names. First of all, Nicholas Rossi, Nicholas Alvarian, Nicholas Alvarian Rossi, Nicholas Edward Rossi. Like there's a Wikipedia page and it's got like 15 fucking names on it for this guy. What he did is he faked his death and then he ran away to Scotland. And then years later, he ended up getting COVID and had to go to the hospital for it. And that's when, the people in Scotland at the hospital are like, now, wait a minute, this man looks familiar. He has the exact same tattoos as Nicholas Alvarian. He had the same fingerprints, everything else. So they'd go to report him.
Oh my God, someone stole my fingerprints.
Yes, that's part of it. This man claims to be Arthur Knight now, who is a Irish orphan. And he says that while he was in the hospital for COVID, that he was unconscious and somebody broke into the hospital and tattooed those tattoos on him and then falsified his fingerprints so that he is Nicholas Rossi. He puts on the most fake and horrible accent this whole time. And if you watch each interview, he's wearing different masks now to help him breathe in because he says he cannot breathe right anymore and he can't walk anymore. He's in a wheelchair. And half the time, the masks are not hooked up properly. They don't work. And again, accent's terrible. He's hired a woman to be his wife. And one of the things, one of the interviews, and the interview lady goes like, what do you say to the people who think you're Nicholas Rossi? And he goes, and he puts up this huge show. And his wife like leans over and goes, oh, well, you've gone and bothered him now. And it's so good. He did get extradited, though. Good news. He's coming back to America, and he will be serving for the crimes that he paid, which we love. But there's a lot more details to this case that are a lot goofier. I highly recommend you look into it yourself. Charlie, Penguin Z, did a video on it that is a banger. And there's also Pearl Mania on TikTok. Just check it out. Big fan. That's my deep dive.
Well, that was incredible.
Wild.
We have 30 seconds for follow-up in a first time ever on this show.
I tried wrapping it. I typed out a thing of like, just cover these things, otherwise you'll go too far. The guy one of his lawyers. Wow. His lawyer's name was Mungo Bovey. I feel like that needs to be said.
Mungo.
Mungo.
Wait, the guy's
Bovey.
Actual name is Mungo.
Mungo Bovey.
That's
the jokes write themselves.
Oh yeah, he and Nicholas is quite the hat section. He wears a lot of fun hats. We love that for him. Again, he claims to be wheelchair bound, and in one of the videos of him in jail, he tries hitting the handicap button, and then it doesn't open for him, and so he gets out of his wheelchair and kicks the door.
No!
He also was known for bullying the staff and abusing the workers. So he'll do great in American jail.
That's terrific. Phoenix, let me set up your 3 minutes on the timer.
All right. This is just going to be a ramble. I have nothing like sorted out in my notes.
And that's okay.
Fair. Just tell us what you're interested in.
That's how this segment kind of started. So you're good. All right. I will start the timer whenever you start going.
All right. Well, so one of the things that I've been into for like 3 years, but also just recently I've gotten back into it again, is Lobotomy Corporation, which is a Steam game, and it's made by a Korean company. It has a lot of lore behind it. It's really like story rich. It has a second like game that comes after it called Library of Ruina, and that has a lot more story. It's like an RPG-ish game, but the original one is like a management simulator, but you're managing like SCP-like creatures and harvesting them for energy to power the world, because the world's in absolute shambles right now. And honestly, it's just, I love the game so much. It is insanely difficult to the point where,
is it
like,
similar to like the Fallout Shelter style games?
Kind of, but not really, because you're not like managing people. You're more managing the abnormalities themselves.
Okay.
Like, yeah, you kind of like make people go and do things, but just in general, you're trying to harvest these things for energy. So you have to like match up the work that needs to be done with them. You have to match up this, that. You can turn some of that energy into weapons and suits that are kind of based on that abnormality to make your people stronger. But one of the core mechanics of the game is resetting. There is a day reset, and then there is every 5 days you get like it's kind of like a save point. So you can revert back to that like first day of those 5 days, but everything before that stays. So if you get like, say, your first abnormality is fine, but the second one, it's this creature that just wipes out all your people immediately, you can revert back to that first save there, and then try again for a second abnormality.
Is it the game itself that you love, or just like SCP things in
all
general?
Of it.
Yeah.
All of it. I love cryptids.
Yeah, I will admit I do. I love SCPs. They're just a fun concept.
What's your favorite real world cryptid?
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good one.
Ooh, that's hard.
We'll make this
really
an icebreaker.
hard.
We're gonna make this an icebreaker for a future episode. So Sammy, hold on to yours. But
Yeah.
Phoenix, with your last 45 seconds, tell me about your favorite cryptid.
This is cruel.
That is just really, really
Okay, tell
hard.
me about a weird cryptid. Tell me about one I've probably never heard of.
Ooh.
One that you've never heard of.
One that I've likely never
I don't
heard
know
of.
that. I'm kind of basic. But I don't know. I really like the like the Wendigos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know
Okay.
that's more like folklorish, but like they're fascinating
Cryptid.
to me. Like
I would
these like
absolutely accept it as cryptid.
I would
they're
totally.
like these
totally
deer-like things that aren't deer, but they're not like human or anything, and they just like I just think they're just
Do
fascinating.
you know
honestly.
how Wendigos become?
No.
No.
Wendigos are spirit. Now, somebody's gonna come at me in the comments for this. It is when
Podcast at george.tech. Corrections and hate mail to podcast at george.tech.
I'm gonna go with what I like. I'm going for it.
Go with your heart. It's like
When a man
garlic.
eats another man, basically. When cannibalism has happened, and they like eat the flesh of another human being, they transform, they turn, and then they like get into this shit's Native American folklore. And it's they have the ability to mimic voices, and they will lure to the woods that way. They're super fast. They can mimic shapes as well. I'm pretty sure there's different types of like Wendigo lore depending where you are. Like if you're like Appalachia versus like desert areas, but
Right.
super cool stuff. I know a lot about the cryptids.
That's terrific.
What's your
Fascinating.
what's your deep dive this time, Jort?
This is something very, very out of left field again. I'm going to talk
I'm very
about...
excited. I read a little bit of what you said, and I'm immediately thrilled.
Oh, I'm so glad. So I'm going to talk about what may or may not be our new Y2K. We're going to talk about an anomaly called the Carrington event. It's the result of a solar flare, which for the uninitiated, a solar flare is when electromagnetic forces and speed and wind speed on the surface of the sun get so out of balance and out of whack that it actually yeets a bunch of solar plasma into the orbit or into orbit around the sun, which eventually interacts and intersects with planetary movement.
Solar flares are what cause the northern lights, isn't it?
Correct. One of the outputs of coronal mass of solar flares are coronal mass ejections, which is the yeeting of the plasma into space, which gets basically dispersed and kind of diffused by our atmosphere, resulting in the aurora, the northern lights. Well, on September 1st of 1859, a British astronomer called Richard Christopher Carrington and his partner Richard Hodgson witnessed firsthand, by sheer stroke of luck, one of the largest solar flares in recorded history. While they wrote down and noted their findings regarding the flare itself caused unbelievable mayhem around the northern hemisphere. There were reports of people as far south as Mississippi seeing the aurora borealis so bright that, according to newspaper reports, some people woke up and began their daily prayers before realizing that it was still night.
Holy shit.
17 hours after the flare, the particulate from the CME, the coronal mass ejection, hit Earth, because they take longer than the visible light that we see when a flare occurs. And that's the scary stuff. 17 hours after the flare, the Earth's magnetic field was bombarded with so much energy that our entire electrical grid was effectively self-sustaining. There were reports of telegraph operators being shocked by their equipment, and my absolute favorite is an exchange between two telegraph operators during the event between Portland and Boston. Boston to Portland, please cut off your battery power entirely for 15 minutes. Portland responds, will do so. It is now disconnected. Boston, mine is disconnected and we are working on the aurora current. How do you receive my writing? Portland, better than with our batteries on. Current comes and goes gradually. Boston, my current is very strong at times and can work better without the batteries, as the aurora seems to neutralize and augment our batteries alternately, making current too strong at times for our relay maggots. Suppose we work without batteries while we are affected by this trouble. Portland, very well. Shall I go ahead with business? Boston, yes, go ahead. So there's more.
You are allowed.
Okay.
I would like more.
Great. Let me start up a new timer.
Overflow timer.
We have it's allowed.
So it's an ejection of so much electromagnetic energy from the sun that it completely disrupted our magnetosphere in such a way that was recorded in newspapers across the globe.
That is
And we
insane.
are expecting another one this year
Oh.
of similar size. And here's the problem. Our power
Everything's
grid.
electric?
It's not necessarily that this could fry the internet, because it could fry the internet. There's an issue that astronauts and NASA deal with a lot in space. It's called bit flipping. There's a reason that every computer there are usually 3x redundant systems to do any calculations that are necessary to be done in space, because the background radiation from coronal ejections, because these occur regularly, just not at this size and this scale. On a smaller scale, when you're in the vacuum of space, that electromagnetic force can actually interact with computer hardware, like with flash memory, and it's called bit flipping, where a bit that was magnetized as a 0 gets remagnetized as a 1 and back and forth, and it can corrupt all your data. So one concern that a lot of people have of the upcoming Carrington event is that it could wipe off flash memory and magnetic hard disk memory that are affected, basically, that are at surface level on the planet.
That is scary.
Here's what's scarier. What's most likely to go down is our power grid. Transformers are going to overload because they're being force-fed, in the words of my very darling Astarian, directly force-fed into the power grid. We could replace a couple of Transformers, I'm sure. Can we replace 90% of them if they all blow at once? And how long is that going to take? And how are we going to survive that process?
There has to be some preparation that's being made.
What can we do except build a Faraday cage around our houses?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
At least the preparation and building, getting Transformers and shit, like, I don't know. That's wild. That's scary.
So nobody
Good.
knows what's going to happen. It's not like it's like scheduled, like this is the day that it's going to happen, because the sun operates on a cycle, and the solar cycle is the way the solar cycle works, and the way we've, based on our understanding of, measuring magnetic currents and the magnetic currents of the sun with our much more higher technology now, we're expecting one this year, and nobody knows when.
Yeah, that's a little scary.
Good to know. Great.
Yep. I know.
Good day.
I'm gonna start making a habit of ending the show on a light note.
Yeah, great.
Last week was Stuxnet. This week the Carrington event. Next week the collapse of civilization.
Oh God. All right. There's a theme I'm seeing.
Thank
Like,
you
one of my
guys.
big concerns if all the power goes down is just food. Because a lot of food is refrigerated, and I don't have access to a lot of fresh food anywhere near me that isn't refrigerated.
And
That's a
most
good point,
importantly, make sure you download a copy of this episode so you can listen to it over and over again after society
Very
collapses.
good idea. Yes.
While you're out there scavenging for used gas in cars and whatever canned goods may have survived at the grocery store, fighting past hordes of once civilized people now dressed up in loincloths and war paint, you can at least listen to us explain to you how and why we got here. You're
At
welcome.
least until your phone dies.
Yeah. And thank you so much for your time this week, everyone. We hope to see you soon. We hope you hear us soon. As a quick reminder, this show is currently brought to you by us. We have, for the moment, neither sponsors nor agenda. All we have is an esoteric knowledge of many things and a drive to share that all with you. We hope you have a wonderful week, that you enjoyed the show, and most importantly, that you learned something neat. Until next time, I'm Jort. You can check out more at jorts.tech. Feel free to write the show with questions of your own, or comments, or corrections using podcast@jorts.tech. Sammy?
I'm Sammy. You can find my link tree in the description for any of my links for my social medias and my Etsy shop where I make and sell D&D dice and other nerdy jewelries.
I'm
Excellent.
Phoenix. I don't really have anything to plug, but I might be back. That is a threat.
We super appreciate you. Shane, we hope you're having a great time on that boat, and we do hope that you make it back to shore safely. Thanks again, and until next time, we will see you somewhere.